You are watching Xirtus.
So with this Guardian article, why do weather records only begin in 1914?
Yeah, so that's just typical reset questions. As with all those things, everything seems to only have started in the, late 19th, early 20th century. I just wanted to bring that up as a general, how should I say, baseline of understanding. There's not even so much I can say about it, but just that also this is highly suspicious,
Yeah.
Why would that be? And then of course also if we understand this, then also becomes very questionable, all the claims that are being made. Oh, 1,000 years ago it was like this or like this. And I know there's certain methods how this can be approximated, but then especially this summer, in Austria, and I'm sure all over Europe, because as you said, the European Union is burning. They were saying, yeah, it's the hottest summer since I don't know what time. And then some people came along and were like, well, there's only been proper measurements for 100 years, so what is the scale we are talking about? Actually, it is unknown. So
Yeah, what's the guy who so clouds started out as like Luke Howard, I think this is right. So clouds for a long time there's not even a name for certain kinds of clouds, and clouds are looked at as being like the kidneys of the sky. Like it's like there's salt water and they know it's being processed somehow. So they think the salt's being pulled out, and these are so they have like a name of kidney studies, which they're calling cloud studies. And Luke Howard in the 19th century produces a sort of taxonomy for clouds. And so he names like several different versions of cloud. I think it's like the
so
cumulus
one
and
thing to always do with these
stratus.
wiki pages, can you go on the
Yeah,
top again?
sure.
And then it's very simple. Just look right next to the name. Luke Howard, the first paragraph. FRS, what's that?
Fellowship of the Royal
Yeah.
Society. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, of course, he's a magician, but
No,
also
I'm
he's
just saying, like, no one ever before had the idea to think about the clouds or name them or anything.
well. So the story goes that taxonomist Carl von Linn had recently started doing like styles of taxonomy or classifications, Linnean classifications. So the Linnean classification system was a way of classifying things, and so he was the first to use Linnean classification to define three different types of clouds and like the different forms of metamorphosis that clouds take. So, I mean, there aren't records of clouds being called cumulus, stratus, or cirrus before he invents those words for them. But there probably are different kinds of cloud studies before that because, it would seem to you logical probably that every kid stares at clouds, right? Like,
Right.
and wonders about clouds when they're a kid. Except there's always this chemtrail conspiracy, right? And if you get to the deepest parts of the Midwest, people will tell you probably that they don't believe clouds existed before jets. I bet you. I mean, you'll find somebody who says
Mm.
that. I mean,
Well,
probably a lot of clouds are really different than they used to be. A lot of weather has changed. Who's to say that weather is that much the same as it was before? I can't prove the clouds have always been the same. I don't have that study.
well, I can't either. I only know that there are certain, cloud patterns that seem very dispersed and so on. And then just before you have those jets flying, and then, they fade out like this, and then they even get these waveform patterns. So,
So when he
mhm.
says Randall Carlson, what do you say here? Historical weather and temperature patterns. Historical weather temperature patterns. Okay. So this is a video, or looks like he talks about viability tracking. So yeah, you can find records that would suggest weather or astronomy. They also can say with astronomy when certain things were happening. That doesn't necessarily mean that we know about what the clouds were like, though. That just says like we know about the heat, or I guess you could say you could tell about humidity and certain things. I don't know. What do you think? You think the clouds are? I mean, for the most part, you think that there's a lot of synthetic weather today, though, right? Or what?
Well, definitely a lot more than we would want to believe, I guess, through, all kinds of different factors, even, just the EMF and so on. Who knows exactly what all of that really does? One example I would give is from a friend of mine who's visited indigenous in, I always get this wrong, but somewhere in South America. And he said they were basically able to conjure up clouds by singing. So this would mean that not all clouds all have to be sprayed by
You know what?
planes. Let's say.
I see crypto here. So Bernie, I think Thursday, are we doing a real science thing with alien scientists? We should talk about clouds a bit more, because there's probably something we could look into, the science and history of cloud. What is the word for that? I keep forgetting. It's like kidney. What's this? Hold on. Study of kidneys.
And there's even been some, I think, BBC documentary or something with the cloud machine, which is a really like huge box, and there's really like a lot of cloud coming out of that thing. So those things also exist.
So this is like, I don't remember who taught me this, but like, so it's nephrology is the study of kidneys, and nephology clouds. Is this right? Yeah, nephology is the study of clouds, and they make it hard to find that word now. Like, look how hard it was. If you type, but you have to find the word nephology, and that's how you find it. But nephos is from cloud, but nephros is from kidney, and the studies are actually like associated from the 19th century. So, I mean, even that is kind of interesting. The idea that like weather is a metabolism of some kind to deal with salts, and that they were, considering that the structure of salt was so important to lightning, and like the precipitation might be connected to salts. I mean, that's something probably that should be investigated more.
Yeah, there definitely is a system. I mean, we learned some basic variant of this in school, which maybe, is partially correct or not. But sure, if we see everything as a living organism, which in some senses it is, then of course this would just be the greatest organism of the planet, let's say, breathing, or however you would call it. And most likely, this is the other example I gave once last year at this conference in Switzerland. I mentioned this once before. We were awaiting someone who was arriving, and everyone was standing as a heart. And then it was a perfectly clear sky. And then we got some drone footage, to celebrate this arrival and have some good footage for the guy. And then everyone realized, oh, damn, there's exactly one cloud in the shape of a heart right above us. And also there is obviously also some ways humans influence the weather.
I just wish we need to get also Lee. Let me see if we can find Disintegral. Gotta find his page. Lee does videos on clouds and on different sorts of cloud consciousness, and it's been a while since we've looked at some of his videos, but he's got a lot of interesting studies on the idea of like consciousness in the cloud. I think there's something to this, to be honest. At first you might think it's a little woo, but there's a lot to be said about the way the clouds move, or that maybe, I mean, UFOs that are hidden in clouds, for instance, is one that people have noticed a lot. I feel like there's probably more to that, though, than it's not just that they're hiding in the clouds.
There would be different orders of agency and complexity of those agents, let's say. But if everything is ultimately made of consciousness, it just makes sense that clouds, quote unquote, contain consciousness just as well. How it is expressed exactly and the degree of their, let's say, ability to decide for themselves probably is different than a human, or at least how we imagine human free will is like.
Right.
But there can still be something like that, for sure.
It's interesting here. They're saying nephology as a word fell out of popularity, and meteorology is more common. It's a branch of meteorology today, but it's not really as common of a word. But since the 1990s, some have suggested that when high solar activity lowers levels of cosmic rays, this in turn reduces cloud cover and warms the Earth. Others say that there is no statistical evidence for this effect. And then they get into CERN's cloud facility to study the effect of solar cycle and cosmic rays. So it feels like there's a reason why this word's being hidden also. Or you can find it if you're into the sciences. So I say, we ought to look more into nephology.